Elisha had anointed Jehu as commander of the nation of Israel to be their new king. The army had proclaimed him king. He destroyed Joram, the king of Israel, Ahaziah, the king of Judah, and all the royal family of the house of Ahab. He also drew those who worship Baal together to offer a great sacrifice to Baal. But the sacrifice was indeed all the worshippers. All those who gathered to worship Baal were killed. Although Jehu did not set himself to walk in the ways of God. When Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the royal heirs. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Joram, sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the king's sons who were being murdered. And they hid him and his nurse in the bedroom from Athaliah, so that he was not killed. So he was hidden with her in the house of the Lord for 6 years, while Athaliah reigned over the land. In the 7th year, Jehoiada sent and brought the captains of hundreds, of the bodyguards and the escorts, and brought them into the house of the Lord to him. And he made a covenant with them, and took an oath from them in the house of the Lord, and showed them the king's son. Then he commanded them, saying, This is what you shall do. 1/3 of you who come on duty on the Sabbath shall be keeping watch over the king's house. 1/3 shall be at the gate of Shur, and 1/3 at the gate behind the escorts. You shall keep the watch of the house, lest it be broken down. The 2 contingents of you who go off duty on the Sabbath shall keep the watch of the house of the Lord for the king, but you shall surround the king on all sides, every man with his weapons in his hand, and whoever comes within range, let him be put to death. You are to be with the king, as he goes out and as he comes in. So the captains of the hundreds did according to all that Jehoiada the priest commanded. Each of them took his men who were to be on duty on the Sabbath, with those who were going off duty on the Sabbath, and came to Jehoiada the priest. And the priest gave the captains of hundreds the spears and shields which had belonged to King David, that were in the temple of the Lord. Then the escort stood, every man with his weapons in his hand, all around the king, from the right side of the temple to the left side of the temple, by the altar and the house. And he brought out the king's son, put the crown on him, and gave him the testimony. They made him king and anointed him, and they clapped their hands and said, Long live the king! Now when Athaliah heard the noise of the escorts and the people, she came to the people in the temple of the Lord. Then she looked, there was the king standing by a pillar, according to custom. And the leaders and the trumpeters were by the king. All the people of the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets. So Athaliah tore her clothes and cried out, Treason! Treason! And Jehoiada the priest commanded the captains of the hundreds, the officers of the army, and said to them, Take her outside under guard, and slay with the sword whoever follows her. For the priest had said, Do not let her be killed in the house of the Lord. So they seized her, and she went by way of the horses' entrance into the king's house, and there she was killed. Then Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord, the king, and the people, that they should be the Lord's people, and also between the king and the people. And all the people of the land went to the temple of Baal and tore it down. They thoroughly broke in pieces its altars and images, and killed Mattan the priest of Baal before the altars. And the priest appointed officers over the house of the Lord. Then he took the captains of hundreds, the bodyguards, the escorts, and all the people of the land. And they brought the king down from the house of the Lord, and went by way of the gate of the escorts to the king's house. Then he sat on the throne of the kings. So all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet, for they had slain Athaliah with the sword in the king's house. Jehoash was 7 years old when he became king. My name's Arthur. Thank you for joining me as we've shared together from 2 Kings chapter 11. When Athaliah learned that her brother Joram, king of Israel, and all Ahab's family in Israel had been killed, and that her son Ahaziah, king of Judah, and all her other 42 sons had been killed by Jehu, she took her vengeance on the rest of the royal family, her husband's family, the heirs to the throne of Israel, killing every one of her grandchildren and anyone else who had a claim to the title King of Judah, that she might establish the throne of Judah for herself. She had been well taught by her mother Jezebel. She had brought the worship of Baal to Jerusalem, and the people were powerless to do anything to stop her, because they were caught off guard. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Joram, sister of Ahaziah, rescued one of Ahaziah's sons, the baby Joash. She stole him away from among the king's sons while they were being murdered, hid him in a bedroom, and he grew up in the house of the Lord with Jehoiada the priest for the next 6 years. People no doubt knew there was the boy around, but they didn't realise it was the only heir to the throne of Israel who remained. It looked as if God had failed to deliver on his promise that David would always have a son to reign on the throne. At least in the royal line that had come down through Solomon, there seemed to be nobody left. It's a parallel situation to what we find when the Lord Jesus was born. Herod was king. Herod was not even an Israelite, let alone of the house of David, and he was murderous towards anyone who might make a claim on the throne. So when he heard from the Babylonian wise men that the king of Israel had been born, he slaughtered all the children of Bethlehem up to 2 years old, the time he had learned from the wise men. But God secreted the Lord Jesus away to Egypt, and then returned him, after the death of Herod, to Nazareth, where he could grow up in obscurity, not recognised for who he was, but nevertheless he was who he was. And the day came for Jehoiada to no longer hide the king, but to proclaim the king. It seems he had no trouble from the guards who came to the temple. They had well and truly had enough of the rule of Athaliah, and so they proclaim Joash king. Athaliah claims treason, but she's the one who had acted in treason. She is the one who had destroyed all the royal heirs. And so Joash is proclaimed king. At 7 years old, he is in fact still a minor, and Jehoiada the priest will lead the nation in the name of the king until Joash becomes of age. But in doing so, he will be turning the hearts of the people back to the Lord. Consequently, Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord, the king, and the people, that they should be the Lord's people, and also between the people and the king. That is, the rule of law would be turned again back to the law of Moses, the instructions that Moses gave for how the people should live, and that the king should be a servant of the people, and that the people should serve the king, rather than the king just serving himself at the expense of the people. Consequently, the people themselves destroy the temple of Baal. Nevertheless, we don't hear of the bloodletting that took place in the kingdom of Israel, or that took place when Athaliah assumed the throne. For the only two who are executed at this time are Athaliah herself and Matan, the priest of Baal. And so they destroy the altar of Baal that had been established in Jerusalem. And so we read, "The land rejoiced, the city was quiet. There is peace in the land. For God is a Prince of Peace. Those who have his rule have peace in their lives."